everybody. Um, sorry, now I just have a few notes here that I'll just keep close to hand. Yeah, I'll just kind of. Yeah, so hi. I'm. Most editors were used to sort of being in the shadows of a dark room, so this is a slightly different venture for me.
Girlfriends.
Well, we'll see. So yeah, as Yvonne said, I started Mustard earlier this year, or last year, but sort of launched it out this year. Essentially, it's an edit house traditionally in Ireland and in Dublin. Post-production, when I started sort of 20 plus years ago, was contained to sort of 2 or 3 big post houses where everything was done. So if you it was like Screen Scene, Windmill Lane, and The Farm would have been the kind of the big players. And if you were going into one of those to do your edit, you were also doing your sound in there, and you were doing your color grade, and everything was happening in the one building. Whereas in London, it was everything was split into sort of edit houses and sound studios, and so there was much more choice, and things were sort of moved around a lot more. So that's kind of what Mustard we're trying to do is sort of replicate that sort of model in London. And I think particularly in the last 5 years since COVID, I think most editors in the country now are freelance. So we're just trying to kind of bring them all under one roof essentially. And we started with 5 editors, including myself, and we have 15 editors on the roster now, with a few more sort of waiting in the wings. So yeah, it's really exciting, and that's kind of where things are at currently. So I suppose just to, I have to do this as well. Sorry, I didn't get into the test run, so bear with me. That was supposed to be the first one. I've already done that bit. I won't start again. Yes, that is actually supposed to be there. So I started as a runner in 2002 in Screen Scene, making. I should probably be out of the way, should I, or over here? I started as a runner in 2002, making tea and coffee in Screen Scene, and stand behind this one. And I went into Screen Scene in 2002, just out of school, and started making tea and coffee, and absolutely loved it there. The plan was to stay there for a month, and 10 years later, I was still there. So I think I liked it there, and I think they liked having me there for the most part. I kind of quickly moved from runner into library. Back in those olden days, everything was on tape and film, so if something was recorded on film, it would be transferred to Beta SP or Digibetas, and in the library you'd have to label everything, and there'd be dozens of tapes coming in every day, and we had big sort of stores with these big doors that you'd have to turn, and there was just rows and rows of tapes. And at any moment, someone would ring from graphics department or from colour or from edit and request a tape. It could be something that came in yesterday, or it could be something that was in 10 years ago. So that was a really good sort of introduction into the post-production sort of life, and I got to see all the sort of different elements of it, and was very drawn immediately to the edit. And I used to sort of sit in the back of the room and watch editors and what they were doing and stuff like that. So that was kind of my first introduction, my first introduction actually was before I even knew what editing was. I was recording VCR to VCR at home when I was a kid, making different types of videos. So this is generally what an editor's timeline will look like. Sometimes it's a lot messier, sometimes it's a little neater. This beautiful little girl is my daughter, Isabel, who was actually in a commercial that we did earlier this year. My son was in it as well, but he didn't make the presentation. He actually came in yesterday when I was doing it, and he was like, "Where am I?" It's like, "You're on the next slide." But yeah, so start big, go small. What I mean by that is you have to start with when you get rushes, you're not like, okay, what's the first shot? And you go and find the first shot. You could get 10 hours of rushes. You put your first timeline is 10 hours. You then duplicate that. Your next timeline, you get rid of all the bits, all the stuff that's not the action bits, and you end up with 6 hours. Then you be a bit more selective. You end up with an hour. You go again. You get it down to, depending on the project that you're working on, you get it down to sort of 15, 20 minutes. And then they're your best bits, they're your selects. And that's the chunk that you're going to use to craft. But if you do it the other way and you just go from diving into 8 hours and start pulling shots, you can kind of very quickly lose control. So let's check if there's something else to say there. Yeah, so film and commercial editing is very different in a lot of ways, but the essentials remain the same. You have to find the best moments and then find a way to weave those together to keep the viewers engaged. I'll primarily speak about commercial editing today because that's what I have most examples of. So attention to detail. This, you have to approach every project with the same attention to detail, and this is not just about the edit itself, but it's how you set up your project and how you organize your rushes. You could get the footage and it might be 5 or 10 days before agency and shortly after the client are sitting with you in a presentation, and the last thing you want to be doing is sort of flapping around 8 hours of rushes. If someone asks for, oh, wasn't there a shot where he took the newspaper down and looked to the right, or the girl came into the room from the left, and you need to sort of be very, very organized and and be able to jump around to what people want to see. In a agency or client presentation, sort of keeping the spirit up and keeping things moving and momentum is really, really important. And as the editor, you're at that point, you're sort of steering the ship. So it's your responsibility to sort of keep it on track. Sorry, let's take a little drink of water. Yeah, so find the unexpected. This is, again, on the back of sort of attention to detail. You have to look through everything. Often you'll find little moments that weren't intended. And like this moment here, so this is from an FBD commercial. Let's make sure that's not me. This is from an FBD commercial where I think we had about 10 hours of footage. They shot over 4 days. I'll play it for you now in a second. But there's loads of different setups and different scenes. And for example, this scene in particular, this couple were sitting under the tree for probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes, the camera was rolling, and they're getting directed to do different things. Okay, now sort of hold hands, or now you laugh, or you look angry, or she's pretending to be asleep, or, running through all these different things. And then kind of in between moments, a leaf fell off the tree and landed right on your man's face, and she just leaned over and picked it up, and the two of them just started laughing, and it was just a really natural moment, and that's the sort of second and a half that made the cut. And that's very easily something that you wouldn't see if you weren't sort of looking for the sort of moments. And yeah, so quite a few commercials to fill out the space here. But I think hopefully you enjoy them. I probably don't have to be pointing it at this too. I'm like my granddad. And press the next button. Yeah.
Or space bar works.
This is the story of an oak. Not a magical oak or a mythical oak, but it was a mighty oak that grew and grew. It became part of life, generation after generation. The center of everything. Shelter on a rainy day, a secret place for a secret kiss, a place of escape and joy, a home away from home. And even in the stormiest of weather, the oak tree stood strong, covering those under its care, looking after what's important, just like we do. FBD Insurance. Protection. It's in our nature.
Yeah, and you see there as well, there's lots of those little moments actually where, you know, with every story there's kind of the main bullet points of the story, but it's those little moments in between that I think where the sort of the soul of a film is, whether it's a commercial or whatever it is. It might be, you know, someone's hand running across a tree, or a zip going up, or someone's hair blown in the wind. It's the kind of sort of very visceral moments that you can almost feel, or, you know, that ignites a sort of memory in us, or you know, helps us to sort of to connect to something, particularly in commercial editing, because you don't want, the main thing you're trying to achieve, one of the main things is for the viewer not to be aware that they're watching a commercial. You don't want someone, you know, feeling like you're being sold to. And they're the kind of ads that you flick off every time they come on. Whereas if something comes on and it's, you know, it ignites something, a memory in you, or there's a track, or, you know, something like that, you kind of tend to be more engaged in it. And don't be afraid to fail. So what I mean here is you have to be willing to try things on certain jobs. You have to be willing to try things that you put forward to the director, and for him or her to be like, no, I don't like what you did there. Why did you do that? And that can be quite a harrowing experience when you're kind of, you know, you get quite connected to the jobs that you're working on, and you're putting something forward to somebody and they're like, no, hate it. Or, you know, that's not working. Why did you do that? And you're kind of, oh, but you have to be willing to do that, because for all of those times that it won't be working, I suppose with experience comes that you know, if you just stay in it, that it will get to a point where, you know, version 5, version 6, version 15, eventually they're like, oh, yes, that's brilliant. I didn't think of that, you know. And so you only get to those moments if you're willing to sort of put yourself out there a little bit in what you're doing, and try things. Most directors don't want someone sitting there who's going to give them exactly what they expect. They could kind of probably do that themselves, so they are looking for that little bit extra that you can bring to it. Oh yeah, so on this job, actually, I was working with a director that I hadn't worked with before. He was a very experienced guy and really, really good director, and I was quite nervous, you know, even before I got the rushes. And the first few passes that I was doing, I was sending them. There was like, with a commercial like this, there was kind of a loose script, but not really a script, and they're just kind of letting him go. So there was loads of rushes on it, and loads of different ways you could do it. So the first few passes that I was putting in front of the director, he was like, no, that's not really landing, that's not working. You start thinking, oh my God. But you stay in it and eventually put something in front of him, and, you know, then it's like you've got a base then. He's like, yeah, that's really working. Let's look at this, and then you just work together, and eventually we ended up with a pretty nice ad that the agency and client were all delighted with. So that's the main thing. So I'll just let this one play.
My name is Christy, and I work in the Hegarty factory, crinkling crisps. Some people are born with gifts. I was born with the gift of crinkling. Oh, wait till you get that wooden spoon. Come on, you big cheesy legends. It's not even a job to me, you know. I love you. I'd come in here for free. As my outlet always said, go hunky-dories or go home. You know what I mean?
And the sort of opposite to that is do what you're told sometimes. And again, I suppose with experience, it comes to know when it is to try something and when it's not to try something. A lot of commercials are storyboarded and scripted within an inch of their life, and people have been working on it for maybe 6 months or a year. They don't need you to come in and be like, oh, I was thinking maybe if we opened at the end and, you know, that bit was a memory, and they're like, what are you doing now? We've planned this, it's meticulously planned out, it's meticulously shot, so just sort of stick to the script as such. Now, within those sort of boundaries, there is still room to be creative and kind of, you know, I suppose in your choices of performance and stuff like that. And a lot of the time as well, when something is storyboarded, there's too many boards in the story. And you get it and you're like, there's like 45 shots here and it's a 40-second ad. So it's about finding that balance, and, you know, sometimes that means losing a shot or two, but ultimately it's presenting the best version of that ad. So I put together here a lot of the time as well, when we do storyboards, we might do what's called an animatic, which is basically you take the storyboard and we cut it as if that's what's shot. It kind of gives you a guide on timings and stuff, so you'd kind of, you know, you'd see, oh geez, that might be a bit quick between those shots, maybe we have too many shots. So I've got them sort of lined up side by side here.
Will you take her?
It's grand. Dad. It's Grandad.
Still gets me. I'd actually had my first child around the time we made this, and it was quite an emotional moment. So where am I gone? Yes. So the eye trace. So my favourite editing technique would be the eye trace. This helps the viewer follow the story and make busy scenes feel less manic, particularly in a fast-paced scene or a commercial where you're getting through a lot. The three main methods of eye trace are movement, positioning, and colour. Positioning refers to the sort of framing of the shot and where your subject will be, so you're drawing the viewer's eye to exactly where you want. That might be like in I think it's at the opening scene of Goodfellas, where Ray Liotta's we're following him through the restaurant, and so your eye has been drawn to him, and he's sort of leading us through the shot. And they also use movement in that, but that would kind of be an example of positioning. And that would be something generally that would be very planned out by the director and the director of photography before the shoot. It's not something you can kind of create in the edit. It's something that's either been designed that way or not. The same would apply with colour. It would often be used, a particular style of a director would, the colour would come through in their film. And the best sort of example of that in a movie would be the little girl in the red dress in Schindler's List, where you're drawn to exactly what you want to be looking at. The colour can also be sort of created afterwards in the colour grading, in terms, even if it wasn't intended when shooting, and it's often used quite subtly. That will sort of darken an image, or without the viewer kind of being aware of the colour change, but your eye is sort of drawn to a particular part of the shot. And the method that would be most commonly employed by editors would be movement, because that's the one that we have most control over. And that would be sort of the movement of, so you're bringing the viewer from one scene to the next and not having their eye jumping from this side of the screen over there, back here. So it might be the subject might be moving across the scene, or the camera might be moving across. Sorry. Yeah. So this helps the viewer take in a lot of information very fast, rather than jumping from one side of the screen to the other, and it can be quite unsettling. That's kind of something that would almost be done in thrillers and horrors and that, so that doesn't really apply in commercial editing. So in this commercial for Allianz, I used eye trace to get through an awful lot of information. There was a lot of scenes and a lot of setups. So it is a very fast-paced edit, but the aim was to try and bring you through so that you're not jumping around the screen, and it's essentially an enjoyable watch. Even if you don't sort of read every single scene, you get the overall feel and energy of it. And it also has great repeat viewing because you sort of see something new every time you watch it. And yeah, a big aim as well, or certainly the intention, is for it not to feel overwhelming, which it can be if something is, and that can be the difference in a few frames on 3 or 4 shots in a row. They're just like, all of a sudden you're like, oh whoa, what's gone on there, you know? So it's really about finding that balance. And then with commercials, you're obviously very restricted to the time, and there'll be a want to see, oh, can we not get that shot in, or we need to get those people in because they represent a certain thing, or this place represents a certain thing. So it's so that's the challenge, and eye trace can kind of just help you get through something quite smoothly. And this film for Allianz was shot on 35mm film, which is obviously looks beautiful, but it's great from an editor's perspective, because with everything that's shot on digital, they'll just keep running the camera, and we'll just do it again. Whereas when you're shot on film, it's really, really expensive, so every frame has to count, which is really nice for an editor to receive that, as opposed to just getting, we just kind of left the camera rolling, you'll find something there, which is also a good way, also like that as well. But so on this one, I would have worked. So I got the footage. I think there was about 6 hours. They shot over 8 days around Ireland. I'd get the footage. I'd work on my own for about 5 days, breaking down all the rushes, kind of organising everything, start pulling my favourite bits and putting a bit of shape on the edit. Then the director would come in and sit with me. I'd kind of show him the bits I thought were working well, the scenes that I thought were kind of flowing into each other. He'd kind of then tell me the bits that he thought were working well on set, and then we'd kind of work together, put our ideas together, and begin crafting the edit. After many versions, we'd finally land on what we think best represents the script and the idea, and essentially the film that we're all trying to make. So the next step in the process is perhaps the most important when we present to the agency. It's also obviously very important when we present to the client, but most agencies know their client very, very well and know exactly what they want. So if we can win over the agency in what we've done, then more often than not, the client presentation goes very smoothly. So that, on my side and for the director, that initial agency presentation is where the sort of nerves are at their highest. And the agency presentation is a very sort of collaborative part of the edit as well. And as Yvonne mentioned, the theme, when she told me about it, that the theme was soft, I thought she was having a dig at me, and thought that's why she had asked me to come and speak. But the more I thought about it, kind of what it meant to me was that you'd be, I would say that it's really important to be soft in your approach with people. I suppose this can be said for any walk of life, but in this context, it's to be open, to listen, and to be respectful. As the editor, I know the footage inside out before the agency has even seen a frame. So you have to be patient and be willing to try things. People are coming in and, what if we did that? You can't be like, no, I looked at that. This is the cut, So you have to engage people, and very often you might think, oh no, that won't work, and then you do the thing, and you're like, oh, thank God I didn't say it, because that works much better, So it is it's very important to listen to people in that situation. The thing I love about working on a film on a commercial like this is that you could give it to 10 different editors and you get 10 very different films at the end of it. So when it comes together and it works well, it's a particularly sort of rewarding project to work on. And I think it's here. So this is a director's cut. So basically, the main TV ad was a 40-second commercial, and then we'd often do like a slightly longer version for which we'd call a director's cut. In this case, it has a few shots that just weren't allowed to be on TV, but the agency really liked it and the client really liked it, so it was really nice to be able to finish it and put it out there, and it picked up a few awards this year, so it's done quite well for us. So. So, where are we? Yeah, so my dream job was always to make films from a young age, and to make films that people enjoy, obviously, and make people laugh and cry and think. So in 2023, I edited my first feature film with a good friend, Dermot Malone, who directed it. It was starring Peter Coonan and a whole host of great Irish talent. And it's something I'm very proud of that I was part of it. And Dermot has his next feature in pre-production, which we'll hopefully be doing early next year. I should say that this film is available to rent on Apple TV, I believe. And that's a very selfless plug because I don't actually get any money from it, even though I was told I would. Anyway, maybe we'll skip the trailer. Oh, wrong trailer. Oh. Oh, not playing for some reason. Turns out we will skip the trailer. No, we won't.
I used to be king before this. They used to call me King Frankie. I got my new business now, and it's a fair one, you know. You're a taxi man.
Been a long time, Dad. Don't beat yourself up.
How are you, mate?
Thanks for being my man, Frankie.
You only did it once. Fraser, can we have a chat?
Yeah, what about? About the proposal I sent you? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to put you under too much pressure, but... Or the beat, right? Since when did you hang around with a bunch of chancellors like that?
Sid, when are you gonna be here?
You're upset. I'm upset, am I? What the fuck? Would I get upset? You see? Fucking prick it off!
Give me my money. You're the only money, Frank. Sid, I just need a bit of time. I don't know what's going on with your life and what kind of mess you're in, but this place, those fucking wankers, none of it's real. Look, I have it under control, Dad. I've got a plan.
This was not shot on film, so I got about 60 hours of footage. But yeah, it turned out pretty well, I think. So one of the highlights of my career was working with Jim Sheridan. I edited a short film for him in 2016, and it was starring Salma Hayek. It was pretty weird if she wasn't in it. It was just like... but it was set around, at the time, Donald Trump was running for president, and they made this film. It's set on the September the 11th in New York, and it was to kind of try to counter some of that rhetoric that was kind of being spewed back then, and I suppose even worse now. So I'm not sure that we have time to like a 10-minute short. I don't know if you want, huh? That's it. Yeah? So the alternative to playing it was just to tell you this very quick story, but I'll do both, yeah. So it's good because it featured at some Tribeca Film Festival and did the rounds on the sort of film festival circuit. And then it was on one of the Sky channels for like a month, but you can't see it anywhere now. I can't find it anywhere. Fortunately, I kept a copy. But anyway, we cut the film and we were in the sort of final presentation. And Jim Sheridan's an absolutely adorable guy. We're in the final presentation, and it's myself and Jim and some producers and financiers and stuff. It's about 10 of us in the room, a small little edit suite. And we play the film, and gets to the end, and people are crying and stuff, and not to lead you emotionally or anything, but if you don't feel. But it gets to the end, and we're sort of having this debate about what track needs a track for this end, and the track, a Woody Guthrie track, was sort of suggested, and we laid it on the pictures, and we're like, oh my God, that's amazing! Like the lyrics and everything, that's perfect. The producer's like, what are you talking about? Like, we've no money. So anyway, we're kind of okay. Well, maybe there's another version of it, and there's like 10 people on laptops and phones and stuff trying to find different versions, or maybe there's something that sounds like it. And then in the corner of the room, you just hear, "How are you, Edge? Come here, it's Jim Sheridan." And when everyone's like, turn around, and Jim's on the phone in the corner, and he's like, "Yeah, look, I'm trying to get in touch with Bruce. Would you give us a shout back when you get a sec? Right, cheers, good luck, bye, bye." And he hangs up. He sort of looks up, and there's like 10 people just staring at him, like the Edge. And he's like, yeah, Edge is good pals with Bruce Springsteen, and Bruce did a version of that song. We're like, oh my God, what's happening? So anyway, we all go out for lunch and we come back and he's like, yeah, so Rob, export that there and we'll get it over to Bruce. And I'm like, yeah, sure, is it Bruce.Springsteen, is it? So unfortunately I had to send it to a producer and she sent it to someone else, and eventually it got sent through to Bruce Springsteen, and the idea was that he'd watch the film and if he liked it, he'd let us use it. So thankfully that night we got word that he'd watched it. It was a pretty surreal moment that something he'd been working on that morning Bruce was sitting in some house somewhere watching the short film that you'd made. So anyway, give it a play.
Closing the tunnels. Forget the tunnels. Close the borders. Close the whole fucking country down.
Why's that, Sean?
Just in case.
Case what?
Big fucking case.
Where you gonna find them, Sean?
They're everywhere.
Look, it's a long day. Very long day. You put that gun down. We're off duty.
We're never off duty again. I put a semi-automatic in the trunk of my car this morning. Fucking touch me. I need a drink.
Yeah, have a drink, please.
Give him his fucking drink.
All right, let's just take a moment here and calm down. You, let me see that permit for that semi-automatic you got in the trunk of your car.
Oh, they have a permit to fly those planes? Huh? Now you know what I'm saying?
Come on, man.
Where's your permit? It's at home. It's at home. Yeah.
Why didn't you give him a break? Look at him.
It happened. Jump.
What?
Jump. Fell on him. What brought you here, son?
It's the last place I drank. Remember?
How'd you get here?
We walked.
You have to get back to your fire station. You see? They need to account for you. Lola, mándame un coche, por favor, lo más rápido posible. And I need a regular driver. Gracias, Lola. Get him some water. Come
It's me there in case you didn't believe me. I think the song goes on for like another 4 minutes or something. I'll just let it play out, I suppose. Well, I don't know if I said at the start, but it's actually the writer, Lee's Hand, was living in New York at the time. And I think it's either a scene that she saw unfold or someone she knew was kind of in, experienced that kind of atmosphere that was, so it's not just sort of made up to try and fit a sad narrative. It was kind of something that she or someone close to her actually experienced. So that was kind of, for us making it, made it sort of all the more powerful. So that just leaves me to say thank you so much for listening to me.